Time to do a little bit of science. I'm not going to explain to you how this science works because I'm not a scientist. But I'm sure you can go online and you can do a little bit of research and find out what's going on. We are going to be using some oxalic acid, readily available online in numerous places. I'm using the water-soluble crystal type. This does a very good job for what we're going to do. You'll also need some sort of container for pouring. I'm using an old coffee machine carafe. These are great. Don't throw them away if your coffee machine wears out. These are very, very useful, and this has become an invaluable bit of kit in the garage. An old paintbrush for stirring, it just happens to be the right size. And a suitable container. Needs to be watertight, glass or plastic is best, and you need to be able to submerge all of the things that you're trying to get the rust off. Try not to make your container too much bigger than what you're actually rust treating. I'm doing some large flat steel plates in here. So this one's ideal, it's nice and shallow and it's just the right size for everything. The thing with oxalic acid is it does remove the rust, it's great. It is slow, and if you leave things in partially submerged, you will get an etch line on things, and that will show through your paint and whatever other finishes you're putting on. So just be aware of that and make sure that the things you're doing are fully submerged when you do them. These smaller pieces, these have already been through the ultrasonic cleaner several times. These were just covered in goo and paint and rust. And these are all part of the little cover that holds down the petrol tank access on the boot floor. But there is still some rust remaining on them. You can just see on this one, haven't quite got all of it out. And that's okay, because the oxalic acid will get the rest. The larger plates, all I've done is scrub these in hot water and some soap, just to get the grease off them. I couldn't put these in the ultrasonic cleaner, they're too big for my ultrasonic cleaner, and they're fairly thin pressed steel. I didn't really want to be going at them with the flat wheel because I might go through them, and I didn't want to hit them with the wire wheel because these shapes, they're just, yeah. Oxalic acid makes this sort of thing easier if you can do it. Let's give this a go. In your carafe, you will need a quantity of these crystals. I'm not going to give you exact amounts because I don't have them. Generally speaking, the more you use, the stronger the solution is. Also, do as I say, don't do as I do, and wear some gloves. I haven't got any right now, so I'm just going to be careful. So I reckon about that much. We'll now dissolve this in some warm water, not hot, and once that's all dissolved we can then pour that into our container. The next important thing is laying out the pieces that you're going to use. You want to try and make sure there's no air bubbles underneath things as you put them in. And you don't want to be splashing things as they go in either. Might need another jug of this, we'll see. Make sure we've got no bubbles under there. Now, although this is called an acid, it's not so strong it's going to burn you immediately. So you do have a little bit of time to work with it where it's not going to cause you any harm. It's very slow acting. Yes, I know my fingers are going in it, but there we go. And as much as possible, you want to try and keep all your pieces from overlapping. Now I know these two big plates, I've put one on top of the other, but the side that touches is the sort of invisible side. It's the side that's underneath the car. So if I do get any etch lines there, that won't be as much of a problem. And this one is just going to prop up on an edge. I'm going to have to put just a bit more water in there, because you can just see these little edges here are just above the surface and you don't want that. This is just plain water, there's no crystals in here. And we just top this up. And you want to make sure you've got a little bit of water above the level of your highest item, because some of this is going to evaporate a little bit and you don't want it dropping below your high points of the parts you are rust treating. Because my biggest problem with this is going to be emptying it out afterwards, because this is quite a flimsy container. We'll come to that later. This needs to be left for 24 hours. I do put a cover on it. I'm just going to put a sheet of card or plastic over the top of here. It doesn't gas off or make any smells or anything like that, but it's just a good idea to keep it covered to prevent anything dropping in, and just, well, you can write on your piece of paper and tell people what it is so it doesn't get moved as well. Right, leave that to do its thing. You can already see, actually, this is starting to go cloudy pretty much immediately, and that's the oxalic acid doing its thing, and it's reacting with the surfaces and taking all the stuff off, which is great. So these should hopefully clean up quite well. It has been a bit more than 24 hours, so let's have a look at what's been going on in this tub. Well, the first thing you'll notice is it's changed colour and now it looks a bit like Mountain Dew. And everything in here is sort of silvery white coloured. The colour is down to the chemical reaction between the oxalic acid and the steel. It actually goes this sort of pea green colour. I have done this with stronger concentrations and I suspect this might be a little weak, but we'll see when we clean everything off. Sometimes it goes very cloudy as well. Depends how much rust is there to begin with, and there wasn't really a lot on any of these pieces. I'm going to very carefully decant this and try and move it without spilling it on everything, and then we'll see what we've got underneath. Everything is out of the rinse. You just want to make sure when you've used this stuff to rinse everything thoroughly with just some plain water. It helps neutralise all the acid, and then you don't have any problems with the reaction continuing. The other thing I've done is I've scrubbed everything with a brass brush, because that's softer than the steel but harder than the rust. And you can see some pieces like this have cleaned up basically to bare steel, and they don't flash rust very quickly. You do have a bit of time to work with them before they start doing that. And the acid gives you a nicely etched surface, so any paint you put on here sticks really, really well. These brackets too have come up really well. You'll notice there's a slight sort of greenish tinge to everything, and that's fairly normal for when it comes out of the acid. If you want to have a really nice clean finish, you're going to have to do some extra work for that, but normally you don't have bare steel. These plates were a bit of a surprise. I thought there was a lot less paint on these than there is. Now you can see there's some remnants of some rubber undersealy stuff on here, and it's not taken every single speck of rust off. This is because it's eaten through something that was on top of everything and then hasn't really gone through to the rust underneath. Not really a problem for what I'm doing here, and I'll explain why in a moment. On the back, and this does look quite a lot browner on camera than it really is. You can see where the surface rust was. There's just some very slight pitting now, and most of the paint here as well is still there. In this recess here there was a felt strip which I'll be reinstalling, so there's some remnants of glue and things up there as well. This piece came up better, and you can see on the edges here where the rust is completely gone. Back's still a little bit wet, it's still drying out at the moment, but again, there's, the rust has gone. Now you might be wondering why there's all these little black fixings here, and this is because that's going to be the next stage. I'm going to use trusty old Q-Rust, as I do all the time with this sort of thing, and I'm just going to paint all of these surfaces with Q-Rust. It will prevent the flash rust from happening, it will eliminate any remaining rust, and it will give us a nice basis to paint from after that.